Welcome, Arizona to Alberta show. I'm Tracie Gray, hosting the show with professional real estate agents Devin Gray and Diane Brennan. And here we're comparing the difference between the Canadian and the American real estate market. Devin in Canada here at Mogul Realty, and then we've got Diane down in the States at Coldwell Baker. And today we are talking about closing periods and how they compare for the States and Canada. But first, we want to hear, Diane, how was your Easter?
Well, I don't have children, right? So it's pretty low key. I get to watch all the TV I want. I actually had company in town, but I wasn't feeling well. So I didn't get to. I have relatives that are in town. They had Easter dinner. But yeah, I was kind of run down and stuff. So for 3 days, I was kind of down and out.
Aw.
Not COVID related, but yeah.
And not too much chocolate related?
No, no. You know what? I haven't had sugar since 2013. I'm on a pretty strict diet.
Wow, that's
Wow.
great.
Yeah, no alcohol either. So my Canadian friends are like, we're going to revoke your citizenship.
I think
Yeah.
so. Yeah, you're not allowed back.
Suddenly nobody visits you anymore. Well, what's the point? Diane's not drinking.
Right. They managed to. It makes everyone feel uncomfortable. And I'm like, you guys, just, I'm fine being around drunk people. I've had a lot of practice all my life.
Yeah, they're not. They don't like hanging around sober people.
Yeah, that's
Right.
right.
It
Sure.
makes them
That's
feel
it.
guilty.
I said, go. I don't care. I mean, if I could, I have some health issues that I feel better when I don't drink. Well, I guess who doesn't feel better when they don't drink? But my hangovers would last for like a week. It's got to do, this is TMI for everyone, but it's got to do with an autoimmune. So yeah, I just kind of, yeah. Are
Yes,
we
I
on
find
the show
that.
now or real estate? Sorry, I shared too much there.
No, that's interesting to know. And it would make holidays like Easter a little bit tough sometimes, but if you've been doing it this long with no sugar.
Oh, I'm fine. I'm fine. Like I said, it makes other people, they're like, well, and then they give you different, recipes where they don't get hungover. And I'm like, no, I pretty much tried everything. They're like, well, just try no soda or try no pop or, try light alcohol, try dark alcohol. I said, oh no, all of it, I'm out for like a week. So I've tried all the variations and I've tried it for years. So
It's so funny because they get the impression like you're still looking for something, and it's like, no, I found it, and it's just to not have it.
right.
I don't need it. It's like try this or try that. I found the secret.
Yeah, exactly. So I teased them because it got to a point where I was ready to say, joking, of course, that I'm gonna have my sponsor give you a call right now, like totally. I didn't know what else to get, move on from it. Everybody.
Sugar Anonymous.
Yeah, exactly. So too
Well,
funny.
we still have some Easter candies, I guess, on this side.
Yeah.
You can see those are Easter baskets, the Spider-Man faces, and they're full of Easter chocolates for our kids.
For the boys. Excellent. And tell everyone, you guys have two gorgeous boys.
That's right, 14 and 16,
Yeah.
and the oldest one is getting his driver's training. And yesterday we had ice and snow for our spring.
Oh,
So he was driving the car. So if you ever want to know if a parent's love is true and real, that's when you test it.
Yeah.
well, how was he doing? Was he scared?
He was well. He's still in that situation where he thinks he's doing something wrong, and as I said, there's every other car around us is slip sliding as well. So you just have to adjust, and he did great. And as I said to him again this morning, because he was supposed to stop to turn right at the red light, but he burned right through it. And I said, but
Starting early.
I said, nobody got hurt. So you didn't get a ticket. Nobody got hurt. Nobody honked at you or gave you the finger. That's a good day.
Yeah.
I said, because Lord knows it's happened to me over the years.
Sometimes every day.
And so, that's right.
And you guys are the ones that probably make him nervous. He's probably fine on his own.
Yeah, I think if he was just driving on his own, it'd be much better. When someone's staring at you while you're doing it, it always makes it harder.
Yeah, I'm not sure. I think because he still will say, "What do you think, Dad? Like, what do you think?" And I'm just like, "Ooh, well, if I'm not here, who are you gonna ask?"
Like, I don't know what we think.
I just like, whatever you think, Dylan, but just don't hit that car.
Yeah. Well, it's kind of like GPS, right? You kind of get human nature. It kind of, if you have help, then you lean on that. If you're by yourself, then you rely on yourself. But
That's
GPS, people are like, can't you figure it out? I'm like, no, I'm listening to my GPS. I've lost all of my common sense. So
right.
Yeah, funny. Well, just tell him to go to Morinville to get his license. And I think I told this story in the 6:30 Chad newsroom, and Bob Layton, didn't Bob do those minute editorials, op-ed things?
Yeah,
Yeah.
Bob Layton's editorials. That's right.
Right. So he was
He's retired
ripping.
now, but yes.
Yeah, he was. I told him the story about how I got my license in Morinville, Alberta, and I tried to parallel park like 4 times. They just started crying. They just passed me. The guy was sick of me being emotional. They just passed me. He mentioned it in one of his editorials, not by name. So I just kind of told everybody that. But he was ripping on the system and how drivers aren't properly trained. I'm like, what do you mean? You just gotta cry. You'll pass.
Wow. Well, Diane, that has to bring us to the story where you got out of a speeding ticket because, or no, for not having your seatbelt on because you said you really had to pee.
Yeah. Oh, gosh. I was stopped there, I remember one time with 2 different license plates on the way to Calgary. Oh gosh, I have stories. Yeah.
I'm sensing a book here, Diane, or a
Pardon?
podcast.
Yeah, that's right.
That what?
Book or a podcast about how to get out of tickets.
Yeah, exactly.
Now we know why you really moved down to the States.
Yeah.
Exactly. Yeah, there's a lot of stories, that's for sure. If we share any more, I may lose all of my credibility and no one's going to want to buy a house or stuff. I'm on the up and above board with real estate, everyone. I don't want to give you the wrong idea.
Yeah. Police waiting at the airport next time you come visit.
Yeah. I remember okay, I'm not going to get into any more stories. It has to do with parking tickets. And yeah, because remember, Trace and I both worked at Kissin, and I would just, park in the front because I was reporting, and, parking was hard to find. And what was it? They were just off 104th Ave then?
Yeah, so actually Rogers Place is just south of it now, and they turned where our building was into a parking lot for Rogers Place.
I could have used that parking lot, let me tell you, because there was no parking when 6:30 Chad, or when Kissin was there. Yeah. So the stack of parking tickets, what saved me is my address was still in Calahoo, Alberta. So they weren't going to go out to arrest me. I had a pretty big stack of those.
You know, in the movies when someone opens their glove box and all the tickets fall out.
Why don't I just, call the RCMP and Edmonton?
We won't give you your address in the States.
Yeah, right? Like.
Although we are offering emails and phone numbers at the end of the video. So.
Yeah, there you go.
That's right. All right.
I was planning to come home in July, but apparently I might stay clear. For a while.
We'll check for you on that if it's safe yet to come back.
Yeah, thanks.
All right, well, we'll go into the topic for today's show, and so that's condition periods and how they differ between the Canadian market and the American market. So, Devin, do you want to start?
Well, actually, the first thing that made me think is that you don't even call it the conditional period down there. Why don't you start, Diane? Because I do find it interesting. You do seem to be a little bit more rigid in regards to dates and stuff like that. I mean, I guess everything is a little bit negotiable, but why don't you tell us a little bit about the U.S. market, and I can fill in the blanks on the Canadian market afterwards.
Sure. Well, when you say, conditions removed, that's such foreign language because we don't use that down here. Yeah. So Devin will say, the conditions for this condition has to be removed, that condition. And I'm like, I guess our only conditions, but we don't use that terminology, is our inspection or due diligence period. And then the appraisal as well. So basically, when you're buying a house in the US, once you have an executed contract, you are it's a typical 10-day due diligence period. That's standard, but that is negotiable. We're in a seller's market down here and people are cutting that down. So it is negotiable, but in a normal market where it's not so crazy as it is right now, people, do the 10 days. And you want the 10 days because an inspector will come out and then he might say, look, you need an AC air conditioning specialist. For those of you, everyone's familiar with AC in Canada. It's just Edmonton. We don't use it a lot, right? So here, everybody's got an air conditioner. You need it. We get into triple digit temperatures. So he might say, looks like something's up here, or you need a specialist to come out and look at it, or an AC contractor, or a roofing specialist. He'll say, I see some areas that need to be patched. You really need to look at it further. So it's so busy down here, you kind of need the 10 days to be able to schedule all those inspections if your first inspector calls out for more inspections. So then that's a negotiation period. Once you get your inspection reports, and we do a termite report here as well. I don't know if you guys do that in Edmonton, but termites.
No termites in Canada. Too cold.
Okay. Ever? Anywhere?
You know what?
That we know
Could be some in the, like I'm thinking southern BC where it gets really hot, but that's definitely not a concern up here for termites.
Okay, so it is, yeah, it is down here. So that's a standard inspection too. So that all gets done. And then it's another negotiation between the buyer and the seller. The buyer will ask the seller, I want you to repair these, or I would like a credit in lieu of, or I would like you to drop the price as much as all these repairs are going to cost. In this market, sellers can say, I'm not doing anything. A lot of people are waiving that. I don't suggest that my clients do that. It's always, always, always so important to inspect the home you're going to buy, even in a tough market. And you can say, I'm not going to ask for a lot of repairs, but at least get that information and protect yourself that way. Then we have our appraisal period, where the lender's appraisal, the buyer's lender, issues an appraisal to make sure that the home is worth the price at the amount that the bank is loaning. And that is a time period as well. It usually happens after inspection. If you don't go through the inspection period, or let's say you cancel after inspection because the buyer and seller can't agree, then you don't front all the money for appraisal and inspection at the same time. So we like to get the inspection done. I tell my clients, let's get the appraisal done after. And then the appraiser comes out. And then once that is done, the only other time that you can back out of a contract without losing your earnest money is if you get the rules and regulations from the HOA, which is like, do we have strata in British Columbia? And then in Edmonton, what do we call Alberta? Do we call that condos or?
Oh yeah, condo fees. And then there are the odd, there is the odd homeowners association. Not a lot of docs that go with it, but we do have some. But yeah, it's condo fees here and strata fees and strata in BC.
Okay, so everybody has the opportunity 5 days to review all the rules and regulations of the condo association, the HOA, or homeowners association, and also to look at their financials. So you want to look at that to make sure you're not going to get hit with any assessments. You want to make sure that they have a lot of money in their accounts and that they're healthy. So with the crash, what happened is a lot of people weren't paying their HOA fees, and then everybody got hit with assessments to make up with the money. And you want to make sure, all the roofs are okay on the condos so that everyone's not going to have to pay for them, or paving on the streets or whatnot. So that's kind of the flow of the contract. And the escrow period. We have a 30-day escrow period, and it's 30 days from the time you execute the contract to the time you close of escrow, which is the official transfer of ownership of the property. And my clients will get the keys on close of escrow once it is recorded with Maricopa County.
Yeah.
Simple, right?
Absolutely. Yeah.
Let's look at your complicated situation.
So we a lot of similarities, but there is probably a little bit more flexibility in regards to not being. You mentioned the 30-day escrow period. Everything is negotiable, and everything can be ultimately ends up between the buyer and the seller. So yeah, we call it the conditional period, or you also had mentioned the due diligence period. The conditions can be anything. They can be upon review of my lawyer, reviewing the property, or reviewing condo docs, or my uncle coming by to view the property. But with a single family home, the two most popular and most consistent conditions are financing and property inspection. And so when it comes to financing, people kind of go through the financing process twice. The first one is, top two questions from a Alberta realtor, probably number one, or certainly number two to a buyer, is, are you pre-approved? Who are you working with? Who's your lender? Because they want to know that they know how much they can afford, and ultimately that a mortgage broker or a banker has taken a look at their financing and said, yes, if you go and look at a house that's no more than $400,000, we will be able to finance it. So that's kind of the first financing process. A lot of buyers get confused. They say, why, if I'm already pre-approved, why do I need a financing condition? Well, the second, once you make an offer and it goes pending, and you're working through satisfying these conditions, the next financing process is that lender needs to make sure that you're not overpaying for the house. So they'll order an appraisal, and they're basically saying, okay, you're buying this house for $400,000. We've said we'd lend you that money, but we want to make sure you're actually buying a house that we believe is worth $400,000. You're not overpaying for it. And so that's that second process. And then on top, yeah.
You guys call that the appraisal period, or it's just a finance?
Just the conditional period, because I mean, sometimes people don't have financing. People could be paying cash, or they're buying a house, just because they've approved for $400,000. If they let their banker know that they're buying a house for $325,000, they probably will still send. Sometimes it's just an exterior appraisal. Sometimes they don't do an appraisal. The circumstance is different a lot of times depending on the lender, and so we don't really call it the appraisal period. It's the conditional period, or while it's pending. While the lenders are working on satisfying the financing condition, we also are working on property inspection. We don't necessarily get into specifics such as you in regards to termites or anything like that, but the inspector will be there for 3 hours and we'll look, top to bottom. They'll check out the roof, they'll check out furnace, hot water tank, foundation, everything, and they will make recommendations about potentially hiring other experts to come in and take a look at the property. If you book it with several days in advance of the condition removal, that's possible. Unfortunately, sometimes people won't book the inspection until late in the conditional period because they don't want to spend the $500 if they're not going to get their financing approved. So
it's kind of reversed. So we do inspections first and then pay for the appraisal.
Yeah, well, it all happens at the same time. I mean, some people basically go and understand that, look, spending this $500 on a property inspection is well worth it if I'm going to not buy this property because it's going to be a problem. But other people are, they're concerned about, because it means that, like I've had some people that have spent, almost $2,000 on property inspections because they keep finding things that are wrong with the property and killing the deal. And so then they got to go back, find another property, and buy another property inspection. Some people, now that had nothing to do with financing, but some people that feel that their financing might be a little bit shaky might wait until the very last couple of days to book that property inspection. The challenge with that is that then you have little time to renegotiate, or sorry, to I guess negotiate on anything that might be wrong with the property, or especially bring in experts and stuff like that. If the inspection is the condition's being removed on a Friday and you don't book your inspection until Thursday, well, that gives you 48 hours. If it's Thursday morning, you might not get your report until Thursday night or maybe even Friday morning. That's when you're looking through everything, trying to make a decision. A lot of times that's when conditions will be extended. There'll be an issue and we're trying to renegotiate or take money off or get things fixed, or deciding that we want to bring somebody else in. So we would go to that seller and say, look, financing's been approved. Because that's completely separate, and that's a big carrot to offer that seller and say, hey, we're going to remove the financing condition, but we still have some questions outstanding on property inspection. So can we extend it by, say, an extra 2 or 3 days? On the other hand, sometimes we'll get a call a week before before the conditions are removed from the financing or from the lender, and he'll say, look, we are swamped. I know you're supposed, it's a Monday. I know you're supposed to remove conditions on a Friday. We're not even going to look at this file until Friday morning. We need another 5 days. So you're best to go to that seller now and ask for a condition extension on financing. Earlier in that process is certainly better than last minute. And then the seller has, and each side always has the choice. The seller can say, no, I'm not interested. You've got to remove it. And then the buyer might need to, not waive the condition and let the deal die, because the seller might feel that they've got a strong property and has 3 or 4 other buyers that are seriously interested in looking. There could be a backup offer in place. There's all sorts of things. So it's very fluid, and you really have to just make sure that you're 1 or 2 steps ahead in regards to the whole process. And as agents, we're always talking to the lenders, how's it going? Making sure that we're fully involved with, we have to be on site for property inspections anyways, but we'll talk to the inspectors while they're there. How's the property looking? Is there any concerns? Those types of things. But that's our process. Normally in a time like this, everybody's crying out for as much time as possible. So while the sellers don't want to see more than 10 business days, luckily in Alberta, as with everywhere, agents are usually listing agents and buying agents, and so they understand the process. When if they're getting grief from their seller that, let's say we're asking for, 13 business days, and they'll say, hey, can you tighten that up? We can come back and say, hey, you've got buyers. It's not us, it's the financing people. We'd rather be up front now and asking for 13 days as opposed to coming back to you in 9 days saying, well, we told you, and now here we are, we need an extension. So it's a lot of conversation and a little bit of negotiation, and ultimately trying to work out what's best for both sides.
So I guess one of the huge differences there are, excuse me, I got to clear my throat, is when we do our pre-approval or pre-qualification, a lot of people will already have been through underwriting. So before a seller even accepts a buyer's offer, they want to see that they can get the financing or very pretty close to it.
Yeah.
There's still a lot of work from a financing point after, but it's more like by the time an offer is accepted, the seller pretty much know that the buyer can get this mortgage. And our documents are a little bit different. They actually show what the lender has already researched. So I think in Edmonton, maybe they'll do a credit check, correct? And maybe look at some tax returns. Or what do they do?
So what we ultimately, I'm pending on a deal where we needed to have a letter from TD Bank on behalf of the buyer that said, yes, they're pre-approved for this amount. And so it's highly unlikely that it'll die, but there are lots of times where people will make offers and they're not pre-approved, or else they are pre-approved, but not necessarily to the strength. Like there's two terms. One's pre-approved, which basically is a quick, don't spend any more than $400,000 and you should be okay. And here's your locked in fixed interest rate for the next 5 years. But ultimately what you need to do to truly know that you are going to be able to get this money from the lender is to be pre-qualified, not pre-approved, but pre-qualified. And that's a much heavier process, and where it's notice of assessments and letters from your employer, and basically your full financial history. That's a lot of work for a lot of people. Nobody really wants to do it, but there's no other way to get around it. Whereas the pre-approval process is definitely easier. It's not as rigid. And it's just it's a quick look from the lender to say, and really it's to basically make sure people aren't out looking at $600,000 properties when they can't afford more than 400, and that happens a lot.
We take it a step further. So the same thing here with pre-approval, pre-qual. Our pre-qual form though is required by the Arizona purchase contract to be attached to the contract when an offer is submitted. So if we get a letter from a bank, we don't trust banks. So if the loan officer who's not working on commission and just getting paid by the bank just types out a letter, that carries no weight here whatsoever. We have no idea what the bank has looked at. We have no idea if the person at the bank knows what they're doing. Lord knows that happens a lot down in the US. I don't know about Canada. So that pre-qual letter shows actually every document that's already been looked at. Have the tax returns been looked at? Have the credit reports been checked? And if they go through underwriting, and then there's always steps to that the lender does to make sure that they're still employed. There's a lot of people that go to close. Do you guys call it close, which is the final day, or do you guys call it something else?
We call it possession day, we call it completion day, we call it closing day, we call it key release day. So we have all sorts of terms. But from a legal standpoint, our lawyers call it completion day.
And that's what we call it on the show too, because we are going to have to wrap up
Yes,
pretty quick
right.
here. So
Are we?
we'll get you to finish.
I'm going to throw my parking ticket.
Yeah, that's right. You got some
right.
parking tickets to go pay.
Yeah, but I thought we'll pick this conversation up because I do think that there's a lot of moving parts, and ultimately the goal here is to help Canadians that are interested in buying property down in the Phoenix area to understand some of the little differences that are going to happen, and to be prepared and not basically be surprised and this isn't the way I do it in Alberta. Which I do get a lot of that from people in BC. We don't do this in BC, and I say, well, then you'd be buying in Alberta, though, wouldn't you?
Yeah, right. Well, and my cousin, when she came down, she lives on the island. Vancouver Island. And she said, well, what do you mean you need a pre-qual? And she goes, we pick the property, then figure out if we could afford it. I said, no, we figure out first if you could afford it, and then we go looking. So that's, yeah, a huge difference. So.
Yeah, some big differences. And I'm sure there's lots of questions out there. So if you have them about whether you want to move to Canada or move to the States, you can get a hold of Diane or Devin. And so Diane, do you want to give us your contact information where they can get a hold of you?
Yeah, absolutely. And I would love to help anyone, even if they have any questions and want to research the possibility of buying a second home here or anything like that, or an investment property. My number is 602-620-2277. I'm with Coldwell Banker Realty, and my email is can'trememberheremail@gmail.com.
I love it. And then Devin, where can they get a hold of you for questions about moving to Canada?
So I'm with EXP Realty and the Mogul Realty Group. Phone number is 780-951-9279. Email is Devin, DEVIN, @mogulrg.com.
And you forgot the part about EXP being the fastest growing brokerage.
Well, thanks for putting that in there, Diane.
Just reading about that.
It's so bad last week.
Where is, yeah, it's on here. Something about how, yeah, I can't find it. But yeah, we're like the largest independent broker in the world. And we just passed RE/MAX in the United States. And I didn't really want to go there, but seeing how you went there, Diane.
I know, for everyone listening, you have to listen to last week's video, because when Devin said, we're the fastest brokerage, I was like, my eyes rolled and everything. So make sure there's information on that show. You have to check out last week's video as well.
I think you gave a "hoo boy" or something like that when she.
There we go.
All right, on that note, we are going to wrap up this week's show, and we will see you next week, every Thursday, for Arizona to Alberta. Thanks for joining us.